honor today to have this amazingly beautiful guest, just not physically, but also how her soul is, just a beautiful soul, and how she shows up in the world and how she is a change maker. She is a trailblazer, and she is definitely making ways for so many in our world. And that is none other than Tara Jaye Frank. Tara, welcome to the Power Transformation Podcast.
Thank you so much. I am really happy to be here.
And I am happy to have you here. And I want to open up with something lighthearted as a fun icebreaker question. And this is my question for you. Tara, what is your favorite color and why?
Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
I honestly don't have one favorite color. It's kind of
Okay.
a mood thing for me, but
Hmm.
I will say I continue to return to the color blue. And that's probably because it's the color of the ocean, which is my favorite thing, and just kind of brings me a lot of peace.
Mm. Blue is actually my favorite color. So it's
Oh,
ironic
is
that you
it?
would say, yes, it really is. It's ironic you would say blue, but I like how you said it's a mood thing because everybody doesn't have a favorite color. But to me, I wear all types of colors and I dress often according to mood. And even if it's cloudy outside, I'll have on a pop of color somewhere in
Mhm.
vibrancy. And it is such a joy being able to show up colorfully and powerfully in the world as how you do. And this leads me to this question. Who is Tara J. Frank? Hmm.
People always ask me this question, and I will be honest, it's not an easy one for me to answer because I consider myself a little bit complicated. But if I
That's
were trying
good.
to,
Okay.
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
honestly, most of us are complicated, but I
Mhm.
think we spend a lot of time trying to synthesize who we are, trying to simplify it, trying to kind of come up with the perfect pithy phrase to describe ourselves, especially in the world of social media. So I will first acknowledge that I am complicated. And inside
Mm.
that, I will say that I am creative, that I am curious, that I am compassionate and courageous. For me, ultimately, when I think about who I am and how I show up in the world, I am both student and teacher. And that's how I think about all of my work. Even though my work spans a lot of different areas, I think of
Mhm.
myself ultimately as both student and teacher.
Mhm. Mm. Both student and teacher. And with that being said, Tara, in the work that you do, explain that to us if you were to label or give yourself a title. Describe what you do, how you serve, and how, even with what you do, you are still continuing to be both student and teacher, even in that role.
Yeah, I think that's a great question because honestly, I don't believe people who do what I do can be really good at it sustainably if they don't maintain both of those identities at once.
Hmm.
So I am a leadership and culture consultant. I have my own firm that has been around for 10 years now. We work with mid-sized and large companies to better understand their employee experience, build capacity in their leaders to transform that experience, that is to say, to improve that employee experience so that they can fully unleash employee contribution.
Hmm.
So that we often talk about the fact that there's a contribution gap in many organizations today. And we define that as the distance between what I can contribute and what I am contributing. So we help companies qualify and quantify that contribution gap and then give them tools, resources, support to close it, to get the most out of their people, but also so that their people can get the most out of their employee experience. So that's my day job.
Hmm. And as an extension of that, share with us more about what else you do.
I am also an author.
Hmm.
I am about to release my third book. here very, very soon. Beyond that, I am a mother of six young adults. I am a wife. I am a daughter, a friend, um, all of that. A curious person in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, a curious person in the world.
Yes, indeed. And so I want to go back just a little bit and then we'll lead up more to the present. But in hearing you have this, day job, but also how you lead with your books, centering around this idea of leadership in
Mhm.
specific. Take us back to your early upbringings and your origins. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, how that was, and how even in your childhood, you had certain leadership characteristics that have carried on into your present day.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people would say that when I was really young, I was doing any visible leading. I would say that those years were my student years on
Mhm.
steroids.
Okay.
But I grew up in New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is a pretty small city, coastal city. I grew up in an insular Cape Verdean community. It was very much an immigrant city. So if you weren't Cape Verdean, you were French or Portuguese or
Mm,
Dominican or Puerto Rican. It was just
mhm,
a melting pot, I would say, of lots of different ethnicities and cultures and points of view. But my family was very close knit. We spent a lot of time together. I was an extraordinarily shy child. I learned later in life that shyness was actually generalized anxiety that presented in me from a very young age. And because I wasn't very outgoing, because I was what people would perceive to be introverted at the time, that was
mhm.
probably the way they would have described it. I just did a lot of listening. I was always listening to everything. I was listening to the adults talking. I was
Uh-huh.
listening right to my classmates. I was listening to television. I read voraciously.
Wow.
And so that curiosity that was in me from a very young age, I think it gave me a very interesting and intricate understanding of human motivation and behavior. And it made me all the more curious about that, why people do the things they do, why
Hmm.
they make certain choices, how relationships are strengthened, sometimes how they are torn apart and then brought back together. These are all things that I was always really curious about. And I asked a lot of questions, of my mother, I would say, because she was my safe space. But yeah, that was kind of who I was as a child. And then as I grew up a little bit and I went to Spelman College in Atlanta, where I knew hardly anyone. My mother
Mm,
literally had like one friend in the entire city. Um, that was really where I had to figure out who am I as a person, right? And not as an observer,
mhm,
but as a participant in this life of mine and being surrounded by so many high achieving, also curious Black women truly helped me discover myself, I think, in a beautiful way. And I took on some leadership roles at Spelman and just got started to get involved in things and really at that point began to demonstrate the leadership skills. So I was, an editor of the literary journal. I was also a coach for the dance team, right? So those
mhm,
leadership positions started to emerge, I would say, more in college than anything.
mhm. Now, you said something that's very important, and I loved it because when you were growing up, although you were introverted, and of course, you said that you later on found out it was generalized anxiety, but you listened and you listened to everything and you soaked in everything. And of course, reading opened up this whole new world to you.
Yeah.
Explain to us, Tara, how being an effective listener has been so key and critical to you as you have helped to develop and cultivate other leaders in your journey, and how your listening skills have even helped to transform you in your everyday life.
I love this question. I will say that for me, curiosity is the precursor to being a good listener. I know it sounds like
Oh,
the same thing, but anymore, it really isn't, right?
hmm
People are not, in my opinion, sufficiently curious about what's going on around them, about their own, thoughts and feelings and behaviors around the behaviors of others.
hmm
I believe that curiosity comes first. I think if you are genuinely curious, listening is a more natural act, for us. The ability to actively listen and understand what's going on around us and what's going on in the people around us is critical. I could not think about how rapidly everything is changing. Think about our societal context right now.
Yeah,
Think
that's
about our
true.
technological context right now.
Mm.
Think about things that are being deconstructed while other things are being constructed. All of that change at that rapid pace means that what you knew a year ago may not be true today. And so, without the ability to maintain that curiosity and truly listen, you essentially get left behind, right? You're solving a problem that is a year old. You're
Mm.
meeting a need that may no longer be present, or you could be meeting a need that is, I'll just say, based on pretense, that is not the true need, right? So the ability to really effectively listen also helps us understand what's going on behind the curtain,
hmm
what people are not saying, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
they're afraid to say. So for me, all of this is really the heart of my work. I believe that if you can't effectively listen, you end up again solving the wrong problem. And for
hmm
me, that is costly. That is costly on every level.
What was the pivotal moment for you? Because it's one thing to work in leadership, but it's another thing to open your own firm and to really say, I am going to intentionally choose to create my own firm, help others in this way, but some type of a transformation or a pivotal moment had to have happened in your life for you to say, I am seeing this problem. I have the answer that needs to be solved, and I want to do that. What gave you that spark to actually do it and the courage to see it out? And congratulations on 10 years
Thank
having
you.
your business when that has beaten the odds and the stats and everything else, and you're thriving in it. Take us there and what caused that transformation for you to even create this space.
This is actually a huge question and it has a very expansive answer, but I will try
Okay.
to be concise.
Okay.
I worked at Hallmark for 21 years. I had
hmm
every intention of retiring from Hallmark. I just
hmm
want to say that. I am a reluctant founder and CEO. I did not grow up wanting to found my own business and run my own business. That was not what I had in mind. But I was at Hallmark. I had been divorced um, recently, relatively recently. I fell in love again. Um, I wanted to make a life with my now husband, who was, of course, then my boyfriend, which is a
Uh-huh.
funny word to use when you're a grown up, but
I still use it because I don't know what else to call mine yet
it's what
until
it
I get
is,
my ring.
right?
Yeah. So,
So, he lived in Dallas. I lived in Kansas City. In
wow.
order to blend our families the way that we wanted to, one of us was going to have to move. And it just made more sense based on various factors for me to move to Dallas with my children, versus the other way around. And when I made that decision, it changed my career trajectory.
Ooh.
So I was on path to be a corporate officer at Hallmark. That's something I'd been working toward for
Wow.
7 years. I had been prepared to do that. It was in the cards, and I found out later I was within about 6 months of that becoming a reality.
My goodness.
Yes, but I was clear about what mattered to me most.
hmm
And what mattered to me most was to reestablish a sense of family for myself and my children. And so I resigned and decided that I needed to assess, if you will, the skills that I had, the experience I had, and figure out what was transferable
Mm-hmm.
about what I had learned and what I'd been able to accomplish, and how I could leverage that to continue to lead, to enable other people to lead more effectively, and to figure out how to help more people more often be more successful. So that had always been a passion of mine at Hallmark. I relished leading. I became a leader at 25.
Mm.
When I first became a leader at 25, I had 22 direct reports, many of whom had been at the company longer than I had been alive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been leading for more than half my life at this point. And it's the part of my work that I loved as much, I will say, as the creative work that I was hired to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the leadership seed was there. It had been there for a long time. The desire to create more equitable outcomes was also a seed that had already been there. At Hallmark, I led that work. I designed and stood up a multicultural center of excellence, and then I led that. I was corporate culture advisor to the president before I resigned. So I was already engaged in that kind of work, and I knew I had an opportunity, right, to take all of those skills, that knowledge, that experience, and create something that would allow me to have an even broader impact.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning help more companies, help more leaders, right? In more ways, because there weren't going to be any limitations on how I showed up other than those I put on myself.
Wow.
And so I began at that point to really kind of brick by brick build my reputation, build my solution portfolio. I did a lot of learning, made a lot of mistakes, some of them very expensive.
Wow.
Um,
Yes.
and have figured out over time how to do the work that I am uniquely gifted to do in a way that is profitable, and has a great impact.
Oh, what courage that took as well. I mean, that is totally, and yes, you have made it concise yet so very clear. And what I love about that is that it shows the power of reinvention, and that
Yes.
you can reinvent your life at any given point, but also you recognize what mattered most to you. And I think that we can discover our passions, yes, through the work that we do, but also through our lived experiences. And you knew this was the right fit for you, and the rest is history. And it's beautiful that your heart was even open to loving again and taking the chance to even marry again speaks volumes. I know that for me, I will come across things that I read that resonate with me, that strike home to me, and I too write. And it leads me to this based on a key part of this conversation that I want to have with you, thinking about the theme of our show of the Power Transformation podcast, the power within to really transform our world. And whenever we put ideas to paper and we print them and we bring them to life, that is powerful in and of itself. Share with us, although you had all of this experience at Hallmark, which is a wonderful company, love the cards, the advertisements, everything. But take us on this journey of you becoming a published author. What was the catalyst for you saying, not only do I want to write ideas for myself, but I want to share them with the world. I want to come before this public platform, before
Yeah.
the entire world, and say, I'm going to write. And now you're on book three. So take us to that journey of you becoming a published author.
Well, here is what I will say, sister, that I was a writer first.
Mm-hmm.
Before anything else, I am a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I had my first poem published in the local newspaper when I was 6 years old.
Oh, I love it.
I wrote poems all throughout my childhood. I made my own greeting cards. When I started at Hallmark, I started as a greeting card writer. In my 20s, I say this is my third book, but that's not technically accurate. It's just
Uh-huh.
my third
They're
grown-up book.
published. Okay, yes, okay.
Yeah, so
Grown up published book. Okay.
I actually have about 8 or 9. I would need to kind of go back and count them, but children's books that I published in my 20s,
Oh,
traditionally published in my 20s. And so writing has always been part of my story. It's nothing.
question.
Yeah,
Are the children's books still in print?
they're not in, well, a couple of them are still floating around,
Okay.
meaning they were in print, and
Hmm.
then secondhand bookstores have some of
Okay.
them today. So I can
Understood.
still like find them on
Okay.
bookshop.org. I can still find them on Books a Million. Like they show up in
Interesting.
places. Yeah.
Okay. All
So I
right.
did that in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been writing. But when I left Hallmark, what I wanted to, the reason I wrote my first grown up book called Say Yes is because every time somebody asked me to mentor them, I would say yes. Right.
Mm,
I'm passionate about helping people fulfill their potential. But I got to a point where I couldn't say yes anymore because I was just overwhelmed. I didn't have enough hours in the day and I was trying to build a business. So I wrote the book called Say Yes, Advancing for Women, Advance a guide, excuse me,
hmm.
to help women advance their professional purpose. And it was like everything I would tell somebody in a mentoring relationship, I put in that book. So it became a proxy for me, right? The first book I wrote as a tool. Like if someone asked me to mentor them, I'm just going to give them this book. This is everything I would tell them if we were in that relationship.
Hmm.
So that was that one. It kind of had its own purpose. The Waymakers, however, which is the book most people who know me for,
Hmm.
I wrote that as I'm going to say a manual to help leaders with a heart to lead, open doors, remove barriers, and usher people through to greater levels of contribution, especially those who'd been historically denied. So for me, every time I saw anyone, especially a Black, brown people, rise to the level of their full potential, it
Hmm.
wasn't only because they were smart or experienced or ambitious. It was also because someone made a way for them.
That's right.
Someone took an interest in them.
Yes.
Someone cared enough to find out what it is they wanted to accomplish. Someone opened a door, made a connection, removed a barrier, right? This idea of there being waymakers in our corporate environments, in our work environments in general, who are open-hearted and willing and care enough to stand in the gap is what I believed we needed more of,
Mm.
at the time that I was writing The Waymakers. And it was published in 2022. And I went really deep, right, on why we need waymakers, what a waymaker is, what a waymaker does, what employees really need from waymakers in order to, fulfill their potential. So that book was for me my way of distilling my framework into something that people could learn from and do better because of. And this next book, if I can be completely transparent,
You are before the world.
You Are Before the World was a download from spirit.
Hmm.
Like I always knew I would write more books,
Yes.
but knowing what you're going to write about, I don't have to, some authors do. I do not have a long list of books that I'm going to write. Like I'm going
Hmm.
to write this and then that and then this. I don't really have that. Over a decade ago, I heard God say, "Tell them how I restored you."
Mm.
And at the time, I tried to write this book, but it wouldn't come.
Mm.
And I now know it just wasn't time, right? Which is how I came to say, to friends and people who follow me, I know now that the seed is not the harvest, right? 10 years went by between those two things. But when I sat down finally to write this book, I was dabbling in a different book and then I ended up shelving that. I talk about all that in the book. But when I sat down to write this one, it came out in 6 weeks.
Mm. It had to be written.
Yeah, it was there.
Had to, yeah.
It came through. I consider myself very much a vessel in this
Hmm.
process. I feel like I own the book and also that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I prayed that it would meet people where they are and give them what they need. And perhaps the most beautiful thing that came out of this experience is that You Are Before the World also met me where I was, and it gave me what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I am exceedingly grateful for that. I was a different person when I finished it than I was when I began.
How so?
I just was experiencing in real time as I was writing it this elevation,
Mm-hmm.
this enlightenment, this clarity, right? This energetic shift was kind of happening in my life. I'm
Mm-hmm.
being completely open with you.
Yes,
And
please
I was
do.
noticing things that I'd never noticed before. I was learning the art of letting go versus clinging to the theory of letting go, and seeing what was really possible with true surrender. Meaning, I'm not going to try to control that outcome. I'm not going to spend all my time worrying about what could happen, what should
Mm-hmm.
happen. I'm not going to try to do all of this work in advance just in case, X happens or Y happens. I tell people all the time now, one of the things that's different about me today than a year ago was now I only get ready for what's ready for me. I've stopped chasing
Hold on.
people.
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on, Tara. Hold on. Wait a minute. Oh my
Pause.
goodness. Yes. Please say that again. I need the audience to grasp that. Please say that
Yeah,
again.
I only get ready for what is ready for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I don't know
And
if that touched anybody else, but that just struck me powerfully.
well, I'm glad because honestly, it has struck me powerfully too. Like I am a Virgo. I am
I
also,
am too.
yeah, see, I'm a perfectionist. Like what I used to do was say to myself, okay, A or B or C could happen here. So I'm going to get ready for A, and I'm going to get ready for B, and I'm going to get ready for C. So that when that moment comes, I'm ready for anything. And you know
Yes.
what would happen sometimes? It would be D.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
And then I would have wasted all of this time and energy getting ready for something that was not ever going to be ready for me. And I realized that that meant I was working harder than I needed to. I
Mm-hmm.
was spending more time than I needed to. I was worrying more than I needed to. So now I don't get ready for things before they're ready for me. I see what's happening. I allow the information to emerge. I use those listening skills, right? And that curiosity. And I say, okay, this is what I'm actually dealing with. Now let me deal with it. Now, I will be honest, this is easier for me to do professionally than it is to do, to do it like with my kids or things like that. I'm a mother
Okay.
first. Like if I'm gonna worry about a kid, I'm gonna worry about a kid.
That's right.
I can't, I still haven't figured out how to not do that. But professionally, this has changed things for me tremendously. I now
Wow.
have days where might be a Tuesday and I'll check in with myself and I'm like, well, I've already gotten ready for everything that's ready for me. Like,
Hmm.
I don't have anything to do today. Anything I do today will be jumping ahead.
Oh my gosh, Tara. I did not expect this interview to go like this, but this right here, I know I need this, but others need this.
It's a
This is
big shift.
yes, it's a
Yeah.
huge shift, especially in thinking about today's society. And although my podcast goes globally,
Yes.
I try to keep politics out of my show, but
Sure.
I am going to say this is the topsy-turviness, Twilight Zone-ish feel
Hmm.
in the nation and around the world
Yes.
that's been happening for a while now
Right.
is causing so many people, regardless of political affiliation,
Hmm.
to rethink their lives, to rethink the direction,
Yep.
to feel something internally more. And I could go in the deep end and talk about planets and solar system and all of that
Yeah.
stuff, but
Yeah.
keeping it focused here, that is so profound because I had something just recently since we talked a
Yeah.
couple of weeks last weekend. I had a speaking event, totally amazing, transformational, powerful, and it left me in this space of yet another shifting and creativity and thinking more outside of the box. And you saying that is so incredibly powerful. And it leads me to ask you this. Your book releases officially on January 20th, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at first, I was going to ask questions about the book and all that stuff. I don't necessarily want to do that. I'm going to push for people to get the book. We will have the links, everything. But you are before the world. It gives me a totally different perspective, even about that title. Could you explain to us how that title
Yeah.
came to you and what
Yeah.
that means, even in your own life of being before the world?
Thank you for asking this because I
Hmm.
do feel like it's one of the most important questions in this journey. I think I shared with you, I was already beginning to write this book
Hmm.
and it was going by another name. And the day after the election, and I'm going to try not to get
Hmm.
political, but I'm
Yeah.
just
Hmm.
responding to your question.
Yes, please
The
do.
day after the election, I found myself in a very dark place. I will be honest. And it connects to this getting ready for what's ready for me because before that, I subscribed somewhat. I was starting to deconstruct this, but I still somewhat subscribe to the whole we have to work twice as hard to get half as far
Hmm.
construct. And what landed on me very heavily the day after is that you can work three times as hard. You can be three times as prepared. You can be right, all of that, and still not get the outcome you hope for.
Hmm.
So I began to ask myself, what am I doing? Why am I overexerting myself? Why am I spending more, doing more, giving more to not only sometimes get half as much but to sometimes get nothing at all? Why am I doing this? And so I was feeling that question extremely heavily the day after. And I was supposed to meet a couple of my author sisters at a weekend that we were going to spend together. And we thought we'd be celebrating when we planned it.
Hmm.
So I still went. Going through the airport was very challenging for me because I felt extraordinarily fragile. But I got there. And when I got there, I didn't want to go outside. Like I just wanted to stay in my little cocoon. So I
Hmm.
ordered groceries. And when the grocery delivery driver's name popped up, it said Socrates. And I chuckled to myself.
Wow.
Yeah. So he showed up and I said to him, Socrates, huh? And he said, "It's the name my parents gave me."
That
And I
was his
said,
real name.
yes. And I said, well, I could use a little philosophy right about now. And he said, about what? And at first I was like, sir, like, have you not been paying attention? What do you mean
Hmm.
about what? But I said about the world. And he just looked at me with a very sincere look and he said, you are before the world. And then he set the groceries down
Ooh.
and he walked away. And I stood there for what felt like forever, but was probably just a couple minutes, thinking about everything that phrase meant to me.
Mm.
So, like, you are before the world, as in you have to take care of yourself before you take care of everybody else. You are before the world, as in sometimes you have to go before. The world is not always ready for what you are ready for. So occasionally we have to clear the way. We have to pave the way for people to follow, right? And get to a different place. You
Mm.
are before the world, as in individuals, people, you and me. We are before the systems. So there is always hope and potential between me and you, even as the systems appear to be crumbling around us.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about all of those things, right? And ultimately, then, of course, came across the Bible verse that also says, you were in God's mind before the world. He loved you
Mm-hmm.
before the creation of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so many things there for me, so many things. And I went to bed a couple nights later. I had begun like writing more, and I wrote about that story in the book about Socrates. In this one particular night, I couldn't go to sleep. I kept hearing, "You are before the world, you are before the world, you are before the world." And I realized when I woke up that morning that that wasn't a chapter in my book, but it was the book,
Mm.
that it needed to be the title of the entire book. And everything kind of flowed from there.
Mm. Just got to rest in that space. Wow. Mm. He lived up to his name. That is
Mm,
for sure.
he really did.
To
He
drop
really
that
did.
nugget. When
Yeah.
when you're writing this, and although it comes from your personal space, what is it that you want the reader to get and gain from You Are Before the World?
Yeah. And even this, there's a theme here, is a non-traditional answer.
Okay, please.
Because while I was writing it, as I mentioned, I prayed that God would meet people where they are and give them what they need. I don't
Got
know if
you.
you've ever read The Shack by
Yes,
William
I
Paul
have.
Young.
I've
Okay.
read it and seen the movie. Yeah,
Me
both.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I was going through the darkest time in my life, my OBGYN suggested that I read it.
Mm.
Did I told you I'm a Virgo? Yes, we talked about this.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, why should I read it? What should I expect to get from it? I'm like, she said,
Mm-hmm.
just read it. You'll know when you get to the part that matters. And I began reading it. And, I'm not going to lie, I spent a good amount of time like, why am I reading this? Like, but when
Mm-hmm.
I got to the part that mattered, it was a watershed moment for me. And I'm not going to give it away. People should read it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have never forgotten that. And I prayed that You Are Before the World could be that kind of book for people, meaning that I would not be able to predict what you would get out of it,
I
but
like
that
that.
God would know what you would need from it,
Mm-hmm.
and that it could be downloaded in a way to meet people again where they are and give them what they need. Now, here's the beautiful thing. I've had dozens of people read it at this point because we sent out some early reads. And the book so far has meant something slightly different to every person. And I receive that as an answered prayer. So while the general theme is learn how to do good without being undone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Figure out how to establish some boundaries and know what it looks like to hold them. Understand the difference between your problems, your business, and somebody else's business, right?
Mm-hmm.
While there's a lot in the book around that, and I talk about entrepreneurship and I talk about family relationships and I talk about society, at the end of the day, I have been trusting, and so far it has been true, that each person who reads it will get what they need.
Mm.
Yeah. So much
I
so
like
that my
that.
husband said to me, I don't think you know what kind of book you wrote. And I laughed, of course, just like you did. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, well, what kind of book did I write? And he said, it's a leadership book. And when he said it, I was thinking, well, that's not what I intended, but
Uh-huh.
okay. But he's a very high level leader, and that is what he got
Mhm.
from it. He got leadership insights from it. So I was like, okay, God, like if that's what we're doing,
Exactly. And to
yeah,
someone else, it may read more like a memoir.
it
And
does.
to
Yeah.
someone, yeah. Exactly. Wow, that is so incredible. And as we said, it is going to be released on January 20th, and I do intend on launching this episode around that time so that we can get traction on it. When it is released, how can people go about getting it, and how can people connect more with you, to learn more about you, and also to see your services.
Well, thank you. I am pretty active on LinkedIn under Tara J. Frank. So kind of all spelled out
Mhm.
TaraJayefrank. I also have a website, tarajfrank.com. And under the books tab, people can kind of find Where You Are Before the World Is and order the book there. It's available for pre-order already, but of course on January
Oh,
20th,
okay. Okay,
yeah,
great. Hmm.
it'll be available for purchase. It's on, all the traditional online booksellers right now. So if people prefer to find it there, they can, or buying it from my website is also helpful.
Hmm.
And then I'm on Threads at Tara J. Frank, and I'm also on Instagram, though a little less active there.
Okay.
So yeah, those
And
are
yeah.
all the places people can find me.
That is wonderful because we want to build this up, and I know that this has the potential to be a bestseller, and we're
Oh,
going to
thank you.
believe that for
From
it
your
and
lips to
everything. Yes,
God's
indeed.
ears.
Yes, indeed. This will be a bestseller. And so as we come to a close, oh my goodness, I could talk to you for hours on end. I do want to end on one note that you mentioned, but I was going to have it as my closing question. And it does fall in alignment with this idea of doing good in the world without becoming undone. Share with us a bit more about what that actually means and looks like, and how can a person practically
Yeah.
apply that to their own life.
Yeah, well, I hope that people will buy the book and read it because every single chapter is like a
Just
series
briefly,
of
yeah. Uh-huh.
tactics and
Yes.
strategies in
Do
there.
not tell
But
us everything. Yeah. Uh-huh.
right, but what I will say is that we usually talk about this as putting the oxygen mask on first, but the
Mhm.
way I think about You Are Before the World is a little bit different. To me, it's deciding initially what you will or will not engage in general, right? Is part of it. Like one of the things we say in the book is, when you do good and when doing good is your calling, like when do you not answer the phone? So one of the things I've shared as a practical tip is I've stopped shoulding on myself.
Mm.
If I ever feel like I should do something, it's usually a signal to me that I should not. Meaning I want to do things. I may be inspired to do things. I may be equipped to do things. I may be prepared to do things. But if I ever find myself repeatedly thinking, well, I probably should do that. I probably should do that. Or even I should want to do that,
Mm.
which means I don't, then it is something that I do not do. Unless I've promised it, that's a different issue. But I've stopped saying yes to everything just because people think I should do it. And I'm the kind of person where I have a lot of unique skills and abilities. And I'm always getting people reaching out to me saying, you know what you should do? You know what you should do? And I'm like, yeah, I don't feel moved to do that.
Hmm.
And so that's one of the things, just kind of really pausing before we commit to things that we don't feel called to do,
Oh, yes.
because I've been saying this as part of my business for a long time. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Hmm.
Those are like two different things.
Hmm.
Yes, I can do that, but that doesn't mean I should do that. I will
Yeah.
also say, as a tip before we wrap, that I'm learning to distinguish between my business and other people's business. There's a chapter in the book where I talk about things I've learned from my husband. And it's so funny because I've had a couple of people say, John is, beyond you, John is my favorite character in the book because he's very present in the book.
Hmm.
And one of the things I've learned from him is to mind my business.
Mm.
Like he'll say, if somebody's upset about something and he knows he didn't have anything to do with it, he'll just say, well, that sounds like a personal problem,
Hmm.
which is another way to say, like, that's nothing for me to do here, right? Or somebody will be going through something and he'll say, well, I'm staying out of grown folks' business, meaning nobody invited me into the situation, and so I'm not going to insert myself in it, right? he also says, and I talk about this with our kids, he also says, he used to tell them, you have a brain, why are you trying to use mine?
Ah, I
And what I
like
take
that.
from that now is I need to stop trying to fix everyone's life
Mm-hmm.
just because I feel I can. Right? It is not
Mm-hmm.
my job to solve every problem, to fix every broken thing. It is not my job to do that. If I feel moved to do it, then that's my prerogative.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not my responsibility to do it. So those are some of the insights and the lessons that I kind of talk about the story behind them. You know, I share what really brought me to that lesson. And I think I'll share one last one because it's been really powerful for me, other than the getting ready what's ready for me, which we already talked about, is I have learned to be honest with myself about the kind of life experience I really want. And when I say that, what I mean is I used to feel like I wanted to be everywhere. Like I would see friends, you know, attending these fancy events, and, you know, on social media. I mean,
Yes, of course.
attending these fancy events and going to these amazing conferences and doing all these things. And I would be like, oh, I should probably go. I should probably be there.
Good.
Why wasn't
See,
I
good.
invited? You know, I would have all these feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a really honest conversation with myself one time. And I said, no, I do not want to do what is required to have that experience.
Mm.
I do not want to be on planes all the time. I do not want to be buying new clothes every other week. I do not want to. I don't want to do what is required to live that life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. It helps us inspire even more listeners. And don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use a little power in their transformation. Until next time, keep bouncing back, keep rising, and be good to yourself and to others.